Hey, welcome to a new devlog. In this one, I'm gonna talk about how I added an entirely new dimension, a new character, teleporting, and more. But for those of you that are new here, this is my game, Skies of Aevium. It's a survival crafting game that takes place in the sky. It's got a heavy focus on Greek mythology, as well as allowing you to automate nearly anything. In the last devlog, I finished up adding a bunch of machines, but in this devlog, I wanted to do something way different. I wanted to add something that makes this feel way more like a survival game. Hell! Isn't Han here for anyone else? Hades has got this entire place to himself, and I don't think that is fair. So I'm going to force him to share it with us. In Skies of Aevium, you collect resources to craft items, or you fight creatures for resources to craft items. But since all you start with is this grass island, and I didn't like the idea of allowing every possible resource to appear on a grass tile, I really wanted a place where it made sense for more rare resources to spawn. Like this power crystal, which I thought would be a really cool and important resource for machines. So yes, besides adding a bunch of islands that you can visit, I figured it'd be also very cool to have an entirely new dimension you can go to. And what better dimension to add than Hades Underworld? What I'm imagining is a sort of combination of the rooms from The Binding of Isaac and the mines from Stardew Valley. The Underworld consists of levels, or layers. The further down you go, the more valuable and possibly rare the resources become. But to continue going down the levels, and maybe getting you to end up in Tartarus, you must first kill all the enemies in the current level for a way to proceed to appear. Like I said, it is very much like The Binding of Isaac and Stardew Valley, and I think it's pretty cool. But the idea of adding an entirely new dimension to my game actually got this reaction out of me. That right there is fear. Excitement too, sure, but completely covered in fear, like it's some kind of fear fondue. I am a self-taught programmer for the most part, so thinking ahead of what a new dimension could mean for my game and for optimization got me a little stressed out. I mean, how could I do this? What is the best way to approach this? Can I even do this? Now, if you have joined my Patreon as a free member, you may have already seen me talk about this problem. But if you haven't yet, go check out my Patreon. There are monthly free behind the scenes posts on how I dealt with a certain mechanic or how I dealt with a certain problem. And then for paid members, I also post the source code when it comes to these problems, but also monthly builds. And even cooler, you can get a Steam key so that you can already play the game, and then whenever I update it, which is pretty consistently, you get to experience whatever is new in the game. And I think that is really cool. But yeah, it's a great deal and it helps me out so much. So much. So check out the link in the description below. It is a really cool opportunity, and like I said, it would help me a lot. So thank you. Right, anyway, my problem. My world consists of a bunch of tiles, and right now it is infinite. You can move however far you want in one direction and keep expanding your world. That's what the word infinite means. It's pretty great, and I figured I'd just make it easy for myself and copy paste my current scene and just change the name to the Underworld. Whenever you want to go to the Underworld, it just loads that scene and you can do all your Underworld shenanigans, collect resources and stuff. Seems like a perfect and very simple solution to me, until I realized one important thing. This would pause everything that's happening in the Overworld, which is the regular world where you start the game. All the machines that are constantly running, all the other things in the game that should constantly be happening, are suddenly not doing anything at all anymore. And sure, there are workarounds, and I'm also sure that you all have brilliant ideas, but none of the ideas that I could come up with were actually ideas that I felt confident in doing. Like, I'm really proud of everything that I have learned in the past 10 years, especially when it comes to programming, but I still have so much to learn. Like, I could probably use additively loading scenes, but I'm not sure I want to, or if I personally am able to. Another solution was to just have a parent object called Overworld and another parent object called Underworld, and have all the tiles just be part of their respective parent. And then when you enter the Underworld, I would just turn off the Overworld game object. And simple as that, it is basically the same thing. It's just using game objects instead of scenes, and I'm also pretty sure that it's even worse for optimization. But then I had a better idea. Like I said before, this world consists of tiles, and currently it's infinite. But does it really need to be? I don't think so. I think the game Forager, one of the inspirations for my game, is a little too small for what I want for my game, but I do think an infinite world is unnecessary. I won't be randomly generating much for you, so if it were infinite, there would just be a bunch of empty space. Yeah, you're creating your own world and you can make really cool islands, but do you really need an infinite world for that? Before you write any comments below, let me just show you this. This is sped up footage of me walking 2500 units in one direction. Not the band. It took me nearly 15 real-life minutes of just pressing a button, which really hurt my finger, but eventually I got there. Now if I have a world of 2500 units in all directions, that translates to 5000 tiles in all directions, because every tile in my game is 0.5 units. That makes for a total of 25 million tiles. So editing shelf here, this is incorrect. There's actually, because it's 5000 tiles in every direction, that makes for 10,000 times 10,000 tiles, which is 100 million tiles. It's a little more. It's quite a bit more. That's gotta be a big enough world for you, right? 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 But if I just make it that you cannot move past that point or place any tiles past that point, I can easily have another area in my game that's just entirely the Underworld. I can just add a black background and place a bunch of tiles there, and then I have a whole new dimension, while the rest of the world is still allowed to be active, and implementing saving and loading data shouldn't be any more difficult this way than normal. Is this the best solution? Probably not. But it is the solution that makes the most sense to me and is also, to me, the easiest to implement. So, in a way, to me, it is the best solution. And I do think that it is a great solution. But performance was still a big deal, of course, so I implemented the concept of chunks, which, if you don't know, are areas that contain tiles. Minecraft is chunks, which are 16 by 16 areas that go from the top of the world to the bottom of the world, and every block within that area is part of the chunk. In my game, I just have an area of 32 by 32 tiles, and whatever tiles are in each area are the child of an empty chunk game object, which I visualized here in the editor because I was struggling to see if it was working or not. All of this required some crazy refactoring, but I am very happy that I got it to work, and I have no doubt that once I get there, that I can use this very easily to get my game way more optimized. Until then, look! Hell! It's the Underworld. It burns. It's just missing the screaming of the dead, but we'll get there someday. Clearly it is not finished. It's just one single temporary area with a chest and some standing torches, which I think do look really cool. What's in the chest, you ask? Well, only the one item that you all have been asking me every single devlog for. It is the most requested item on my entire channel. It's bread. I finally added bread in the game. There are tens of thousands of pieces of bread. Should last you a day or two. Anyway, I also made a tool that allows me to just draw some pixels in Sprite and turn those into islands in the game based on a single button press, which will make adding islands or levels so much easier. But the reason this is all I have for the Underworld right now is actually simple. There is no combat yet. I said before that it's a combination of the Binding of Isaac and Stardew Valley down in the Underworld, and that's because every level will have a bunch of enemies the first time you get there. Once you've killed those, you'll unlock a way to get to the next level. And since I don't have any monsters yet, or combat, I figured I might as well add the other levels later. The first level is going to be a lobby of some sorts where you can just meet characters like Hades or this guy. It's Charon. Look at it. I don't know how familiar you all are with Greek mythology, but this is my interpretation of the boat guy, Charon. He basically brings dead people to the Underworld. People enter his boat and then they go over the river Styx and then they go to the Underworld, where either they are doomed or they are not. But yeah, this is my Charon. He's a chill dude with a boat and a lantern. He's my friend. I eventually want every character that you can interact with to have their own personality and stuff and to actually feel like a character. But for now, when you interact with Charon, he just teleports you straight to the Underworld. And when you do so in the Underworld, in the lobby, he teleports you straight back. I still have to figure out how I want you to teleport between the levels, or how I want you to progress between the levels, and how I want you to return from those levels back to the lobby. But for now, I know that at least Charon will always be there to help me out. Also, the lobby will not look like this clearly, but because I want people to be able to progress already when they are playing the game or just testing things out, there are a bunch of resources and new ones will spawn every single day. Some other small things that I have added as of late: basic settings with keybinds, which is apparently the thing that people really wanted. I'm not sure why that matters so early in development, but it's there. And you know what? I think it's very cool that I was able to get that to work so quickly. I've also added some new tasks and changed some recipes to already improve some balancing. But the thing that I am most proud of, and I have not spent any time at all in this devlog talking about, I added saving and loading. So cool! It was a bit scary to get started on because it's obviously a pretty big game where like the scope of it is big and there's a lot of data that needs to be saved. But surprisingly, using the free asset called Quick Save on the Unity Asset Store, it was super easy to figure it out, and I can highly recommend checking out that asset. I think it is phenomenal. But yes, now you can actually stop playing at some point and just come back to it. That's so cool! It's an actual game. But what's next? Well, I would like the Underworld to look and feel like a real Underworld by adding a bunch of levels and a bunch of enemies that you have to defeat and loot and all that cool stuff. So while it was not my plan originally, that is what I'm going to be doing next. I'm adding combat! Yes!